All right, so we're going to start on all fours. So in your tabletop position, just hands on the ground, knees are soft, feet are soft, just relax everything in your neck and just keep a nice flat back and start to use your breath here. So you're just going to inhale into your belly and draw the spine up and round it out. Draw your chin into your chest. And then when you exhale, you're going to let that spine go, let the belly drop. Lift the chin as much as you can. And then do that again 2 more times. Inhale, draw the breath in, lift your belly. Expand your spine. And then exhale, let that breath go. Lift the chin, lift the chest, push the shoulders back. And one more time, inhale the breath, draw the belly in. And then exhale, let that breath go. And the chin comes up. And then back to flat back. Just balancing out between your hands, between your knees. Keep that nice flat back and circle around the hips. So just talking a little bit about anxiety or anxiousness that gets into the body. We all have anxiousness. So it keeps us safe. But sometimes that goes to a little bit of a different level when we have some anxiety or stress in our life. So you're just going to circle around the other way. And whenever that happens, our adrenals get challenged. Your adrenals sit just on top of your kidneys. So they connect to the low back. So we start to have some discomfort up our spine. We don't even know it. We're just going to release those today. All right, stop the circles. Keep a nice flat back. Curl your toes a lot and ground into the toes as you lift your hips into a downward dog position so the head can come between the arms as much as possible. And then start to use your breath to sink back into your heels a little bit. And then you're going to walk the heels out. So you're going to press your left or right foot into the ground and lift the opposite heel off the ground. And then make an exchange between the heels. So alternating the heel press, keeping on the ball of the foot of the heel that's lifted and pressing into the heel of the foot that's pressed back. Continue to do that and moving at whatever pace feels good for you. Sometimes we like to speed it up a little bit. Sometimes we want to slow it down. Maybe we find a sticky spot, so we hang out there a little bit. Let's do 2 more pedals. And then we're going to just settle down into that downward dog, reaching our heels back as much as possible. Press through your fingertips, drop that head between the elbows, lengthen the spine, tailbone up. Good, and then you just might want to wiggle your hips side to side, just rocking them gently. So we're pulling a little bit on the hamstrings here, and that's okay. It's a gentle pull. And then we stop that rocking. And then we're going to bend our knees a lot and look to our hands and walk towards the hands with the feet till you end up in a forward fold. And in that forward fold, we want the knees bent as much as possible. And then we're going to grab our elbows and let our arms hang with our forehead towards the forearms. So you're just hanging here, and then any amount of rocking. So you're swaying the body side to side. You're lulling the body, that anxiousness that gets caught up in the body, even while we're stretching. We can create anxiousness anytime, stretching, driving, working, moving, and we don't even know it. All right, stop the swaying and just let yourself hang here. Take your breath in case you started to hold your breath there. Inhale and exhale a lot. Perfect. And then just let the arms go down to the floor. So they just cascade down. Wiggle your fingers, maybe like you're playing a piano on the floor. And then we're just going to lift our hips as much as our legs will allow us to. So hips back, weight in the heels. There's not a lot of weight in my fingertips. And then we'll bring our hands to our shins and then walk up our legs with our hands to our thighs till we come up slowly. Head comes up last until we're in a full standing position. So stand with your feet nice and wide here. We're going to soften the knees, bend your knees as much as you can, and then walk back down the legs until you arrive on the floor with your hands firmly pressed in the floor. Then we're going to push our heels outward, and maybe we can find some more room in between the legs. Turn your toes out so they're pointed outwards, and then your heels follow. So you've got a nice wide forward fold here. Now let's just see if we can either soften our knees to come down to our forearms and or keep the legs exactly how they are, and see if your forearms will come down to the ground. So you may need to bend the knees a lot to get down there. And we're opening up the inner thighs here, down deep in the SI joint in the low back. And then we're just breathing. See if you can play with the bend in your knees. If you've bent a lot, see if they'll straighten just a little more. So we're never locking the joint, but we're pressing up through the back of the legs. Good. And then let's come back up to the tips of our fingers. Walk your hands up until you're in that full forward fold. Place your palms down on the ground. And let's see if we can drop down into one leg. So we get a nice stretch into the inner thigh. And you may like to play there a little bit, lifting the toes of the straight legs. So you're coming up into the heel. Maybe it feels good to just rock that foot like you're waving with your foot, like you would with your hand. Toe comes down, toe lifts up, just wiggling around that big, large joint inside that hip. All right, bring that foot back down, plant the foot, and let's see if we lift ourselves back up to the middle and drop into our second side. Find some room there, find some space, drop those hips back. We can open up and release the low back. Our adrenal glands start to release. They start to dissipate. The stress that goes into the adrenals that sit just around the kidney, pull back on the diaphragm. Moving that second foot just up and sort of waving it, just literally lifting it up. Find where you can rock there. Find where it's gentle. It's not jarring. Good. And then bring that foot back down. And then let's come back into two legs straight in that forward fold. And then toe heel walk your feet inward. So toe, heel, and see if it's any more comfortable to be in that full expression, that full forward fold. Let go of your head, let go of your neck. Maybe your belly can rest on your thighs. And just let that blood drain from the shoulders down into the head, down to the fingertips. So we get new lymph, new oxygen up back into the head as we come up and rise. So let's walk our hands into our feet. See if we can walk up those legs again slowly. Again, we don't want to get dizzy. Until you're all the way up. And then just hands out to the sides, fingers open, spread your fingers. Close your eyes for a moment in this mountain pose. Inhale, you'll feel the neck tighten a little bit. Exhale, let go of the neck. Let go of any tension in the upper spine. Good. Open your eyes. And then we're going to go down to a kneeling position. So find your way down to the mat. Once you're in that kneeling position, we're going to do a bit of a toe squat, though we won't lift our knees off the ground. So you're going to curl your toes underneath you. You're going to see if you can sit back onto the heels. So a lot of tension gets collected right from the tips of our toes up the back of our body, right around towards our forehead. This is our thinking spot. So if we release our toes, the tips of our toes, the bends in our toes, we're actually beginning to release tension into our mind. We see clearer, we think clearer, and the anxiety starts to leave the body because that anxiousness goes somewhere else, not near the heart, not in our brain, down towards our feet. See if you can hang out there for 2 more breaths. So a nice deep breath in. Find where there may be more tension on one side than the other. Exhale, soften. I'm personally feeling more tension in my right toe, my big toe. So I'm just paying attention to that, not judging, just observing. Good. Let's come forward onto our hands so we can release the toes and sit back so we can wiggle out our toes a little bit and let that tension release. Good. And just rock from side to side here on your hips. All right, we're going to go into crocodile pose. Crocodile pose will put some pressure on the front side of our body. When we're anxious, a lot of energy goes to the front side of our body. So if we can create some tension or some space and relief That's a good thing for our body. So you're going to lie right down on your belly and you're going to stack your elbows or your forearms over top of each other. And then we're going to lie our forehead onto our forearms. And just creating some weight into our belly and into our diaphragm allows more space for us to breathe into that diaphragm. You may like to wiggle your hips from side to side a little bit here. Think of that lulling, think of that peace, that calm that you're bringing into the backside. Let's take one more breath to just release and settle those hips. Now, just keeping the forehead on one stacked arm. So you're going to take the opposite hand, you're going to bring it back behind you, going into bow pose, which means we're going to bend the same leg that we're reaching back with our arm. And we're going to bring that heel towards our glute. And see if you can grab somewhere around your ankle as opposed to up at the front of the foot or around your toes. Relaxing that forehead into arm or into the forearm, creating a little bit of pressure into the temples. While you're there, you're going to slightly squeeze that back glute so you can internally rotate the heel tighter into the body as a way to bring everything into center line. And then by activating the glute, we're going to open up the front of the hip, heel that's towards your butt. And that opens up the psoas muscle, the hip flexor, where we have flexion and we carry a lot of tension in our pelvis, a lot of emotions in our pelvis. So you're trying to point the knee down your mat as much as you can. Let's take one breath here. And exhale, try to really activate that stretch. And then on your next breath, we're going to inhale and then slowly release that foot down our mat. So both legs are straight and exchange our arms when we're ready. So our forehead comes to the second side, the second forearm, and then bring that heel towards your backside. Select the foot into your hand, closer to your ankle than to the top of the foot. And then start to squeeze that glute so you're internally rotating and aligning the low back. SI joint can open and settle as much as possible. To activate the stretch, we start to squeeze that glute and press our hips down into the floor so we open up that front hip flexor. You may feel the quadricep, and that's a good thing. It's connected to that hip flexor. The more we can activate it, the more release we receive. And then when you're ready, on your next breath, let that foot float down, release that foot from your hand, let the leg float back down. Both hands are stacked again, and then just gently rock the hips, just gently side to side. We're going to attempt the full bow pose, which means we're going to bring one foot and then our second foot into our hands and see if we can hold both ankles into our hands. Add flexion to your heels. So you bring the toes down towards the shins and you're pushing through your heels. And if you're able to access it, you're going to lift up the head, looking down to your mat, shoulders wrap back behind you. And then we're going to see if we can lift the fronts of the thighs just gently off the ground. We'll hold it for 1, 2, 3, and then slowly release the front of your body down to the mat. Maybe you want to lay the face cheek down on its side, release one foot, release the second foot, and then just settle your arms down. Wiggle your fingers a little bit, wiggle your toes a little bit, wave your heels a little bit, side to side. And then when you're ready, you're going to draw your hands up under your shoulders to do a push up of the chest off the mat. Chin comes back to center line. We're going to push up our shoulders and start to peel our belly off the ground so we can go into a cobra stretch here. So this would be a full cobra. And if that doesn't feel too comfortable to your back, you can go into a baby cobra, which is down on your forearms. And then we're just going to move our chin slowly from side to side. So anxiety starts to pool up in the pituitary gland, up in that thyroid, around our throat chakra. So we want to move through that neckline. Maybe the head wants to come up. You can draw the chin up a little bit here, stretch underneath that neck, push the shoulders back and down, and then settle the back and the head down into center line. Using your belly muscles, tighten up your tummy and push those hips slowly. The back has been in a full hyperextension here. So slowly dropping those hips back into a child's pose. And then rock the hips again, trying to loosen up any tightness that you started to feel maybe in that low back. Beautiful, that looks good. All right, drawing those knees in as tight as you can. We're going into a bit of a rabbit pose here. You're gonna draw your knees into a tight ball. And then you're gonna bring your hands, back of your hands behind you, resting the back of the hand on the floor, and then your forehead on the mat. And you're gonna tighten that chin up and create the tiniest ball you possibly can with that forehead. It may feel good here to grab your feet and maybe give your feet just a gentle massage, stimulating some of the meridian points in the feet. The heels stimulate closer to your belly, the middle of the foot closer to your chest. And if you're able to grab any of your toes or the sides of the feet, it starts to work into the forehead, into our thinking spot of our brain. And then when you're ready, just settle, let go. Take a breath. Let those shoulders open up and expand like a waterfall around the neck. Just let go. And then we start to draw the hands up back to our shoulders so we can use them to push up and sit up, lifting the forehead, lifting the spine, and lifting the back. All right, rock forward into that table position. Let's go back to our downward dog. So curl your toes under, lift the hips up, and see if that downward dog feels any different now than it did when you first started. Perhaps you can get those heels right down to the ground now, both heels grounded as far or as close to the ground as possible. Good, and then look to your hands and start to walk towards your hands with your feet into that forward fold. Let your body hang here, forehead towards the forearms, and then just create a figure 8 here. Let's just get into full expansion of our spine, upper lateral muscles. Our lateral muscles run up and down our vertebrae. Our vertebrae collects all the nerves and the information that runs through our body. So if we loosen that up, we get a lot more thinking space and a lot more breath space. All right, settle the arms, let your hands hang, and then forehead comes up, lift your chin, lift your chest, and see if you can sit back here and roll into your toes. You're a little safer now. And then drop those knees right to the ground and see if you can settle into the heels where we first stretched out the toes a little bit. And see if that just feels a little more comfortable now. So it's rocking side to side. You might be able to put a little more weight from side to side. Feel a little better. Beautiful. Good. All right, let's put our hands on the floor, release our toes, wiggle them out, walk your knees back, and settle. So with your pillow, if you have one, and or if you had a blanket, you could just take your blanket. We're not going to use it for too much other than to put it under our side body. We're going to bring that pillow. I'm using a bolster, and I'm going to lean up right against it. So the long part of my bolster or the long part of a pillow or blanket, you're going to just lean your hip against it, and we're going to walk out our bottom hand so we can do a side stretch. So the bottom arm is extended so we can lay our head down on the bicep, and the legs are stacked. Good. Both in a bit of an L position. I'm just going to take my glasses off for a moment. And then we're going to take our top hand and we're going to extend it up to the ceiling and reach it up and over so that we can fully stretch the side of our body. We catch that top wrist into our bottom hand, holding the wrist and gently pulling the arm out of the socket, reaching it, adding a little bit of tension into the side of the body. And then if it feels comfortable, we can straighten the top leg out as much as possible. Bottom knee stays bent. And then sort of play with the space and find where you can roll that chest back just a little bit so we can get right into the sticky part of our diaphragm, just up around those adrenals. The adrenals sit on top of those kidneys, as I said, and deep inside our belly muscles. And just take a breath. See if you can open up just a little more. Lots of pull. And then press through that bottom heel as much as you can to fully activate that side stretch. Beautiful. Good. And then when you're ready, we're just going to rock back forward just a little bit so we can bring that arm back to the front. Use it to push you up, coming up slowly, trying not to disrupt any of the energy or that peace that you're starting to create in the body. And then we're going to change sides. So coming to your second side, putting the pillow, bolster, or blanket. And if you don't have any of those, you can always do a side body stretch, just laying on the floor, laying the head down on the arm. Use that top hand to come up, grab that wrist of the top arm, gently pull, and then when you're ready, you straighten out the top leg. The bolster just adds that extra stability, extra support to the rib cage, and a little more expansion with that up and over bridge. So the ribs get a little bit of pressure to add to the release. So it's a trigger pressure, like an acupuncture, but it's acupressure. All right, see if you can open up that top chest just a little bit, get into the psoas. So maybe even your hip flexor starts to feel a little more opening when we do a lot of sitting. We're constantly folding that psoas or hip flexor, and a lot of tension collects there. A lot of stale blood, a lot of stale energy. We want to open up and activate and create room for that energy to leave the body. Good. And then when you're ready, just fold back to the front, bringing that top hand forward and using it to come up. Okay, so we're just going to go into a gentle spinal twist here. So if you have a bolster, great. If you have a pillow or a blanket, you're just going to go long ways. So we're on the short edge of the pillow and or bolster or blanket. And then you're going to use your hands on either sides of the pillow to lift the spine. And then we're rotating in the upper axis of the spine, rotate our shoulders and start to track ourselves down until we can settle our chest down onto the pillow, bolster, or blanket. And if it feels good, you may be able to twist or turn your head away from your legs and settle your face cheek down. And if that feels a little too sticky, you just lay the same side as your legs, that face cheek down, so it feels a little more comfortable. And as you're hanging out there with that face cheek away or to the front, you may want to slide your hips back a little bit so that your low back and your back hip can settle a little more comfortably. This is a fantastic way to deactivate the central nervous system. We talk about the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. So that fight or flight, we want to go into that rest and digest state. Take one more small little breath here. Inhale and completely exhale and let go. Good. When you're ready, we're just going to bring our hands back to our shoulders so we can use them to push ourselves up so our neck doesn't get challenged as we drag up. And then when you're ready to switch sides, you can just simply twist around so your knees are pointed in the second direction. And then the hands go to either side of the pillow. We're going to lift the chest and gently rotate that spine until we can walk down and settle to our second side. So you want to think about wringing out the spine here, wringing out any energy that doesn't serve you, trying to just let go Bring a little bit of peace to the body. And again, if it feels good to wiggle your hips away from the pillow a little bit, just shift them back. Find a little more room to track the shoulders. Add that little bit of twist. This helps us wring out our belly muscles, our gallbladder, our kidneys. Just trying to let go and allow some peace to come into the body. Take one more little breath here. Any excess tension that might be in the body, just breathe it out. Good. And then just draw the hands in, using them to push yourself back up, all the way back to seated position. Bring yourself back and around, and then walk yourself to face forward, moving the bolster out of the way. Good. Let's just bring the soles of our feet together. And here's where you just want to rock your hips a little bit to get that fleshiness out from underneath us. Maybe you like to pull it out of the way. And then sitting up nice and tall, we're just going to come into a final forward fold, just bringing our chest towards the floor, holding our feet or anywhere on the ground, even our ankles or shins. And then let's see if we can go a little bit deeper. So use your breath to inhale and exhale and fold forward or soften just a little more to settle. And then try that again. Inhale and exhale, and see if you can forward fold and settle a little more. Good. When you're ready, coming up, walk yourself up. Hands go back behind you. Knees come in, and then just gently rock out the knees. Rock out the hips. Beautiful. Good. All right, when you're ready, we're just going to find our way into our final Shavasana, our corpses pose. You can use your pillow underneath your knees if that feels good. You can wrap yourself up in a blanket just to bring some peace and calm to the body. And then you just lie back and rest. Good. So with your hands, palms up to the ceiling, start to unravel everything in your body from the tips of your toes to your knees, into your hips, into your belly, into your shoulders, your neck, your jaw, and your forehead. Just resting there, and start to witness your breath coming into the body, whether it be through your nose or your mouth, trying your best to bring your attention into a breath to your nose as the nose filters the air, the oxygen coming into the body. And then maybe you want to use that pause, that hold. And then when you're ready, just exhale, counting 1, 2, 3. I'll let you start to focus on your breath, all on your own. And if it feels good and it feels safe, you want to open that mouth just a little bit as you exhale and slightly sigh, using that ujjayi breath, which sounds a little bit like rocks or water flowing through the rocks. And all on your own, using that sigh to just let out any anxiety that might be stuck in the body anywhere. Just inhale. And then when you exhale, just make lots of sound. Do that again, all on your own. Inhale. And exhale when you're ready. Very good. And then finally, when you're ready, we're just going to roll to our side, lying in that fetal position, not moving too quickly. And if there's a pillow under your knees, that's okay. Draw your knees up into your chest so your feet may be above your pillow. And just get comfy here in that fetal position just for the next half a minute. Curling those knees up into your chest, into the tightest ball you can create, letting go of any additional tension or pressure that runs up through the spine. Letting go of the top shoulder, letting go of your neck. And then finally, using your top hand to lift you up into a seated position, going into crossed legs as much as you possibly can. Good. And then just rolling out that head, small or big circles, 2 or 3 times in each direction, letting go of any tension in the neck that might have collected there. Very nice. Good. Wiggle out your shoulders, wiggle out your fingers, roll out your hands. Energy gets stuck in all places, right down into our fingertips. Beautiful. And then just bring those hands behind you, clasp your fingers, open that chest, open that heart. Send yourself lots of love right now. Drop those shoulders away from your ears. Take your last breath here. Inhale nice and deep. And exhale, sigh one more time. Let it go and let your fingers go. Let your arms go. Bow the head, hands to the heart. A little bit of a prayer. That was beautiful. Thank you so much, guys. Have yourselves a fantastic day. Bye for now. Bye, Lee. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.